Howdy, folks. I guess what we might want to talk about today is dirt dealing, the old real estate swindle kind. Um, the reason I'm kind of stuck on this issue, very simple. If you go back to the days of the Couch Mortgage Company and the Pioneer Financial swindles there in Houston, involving the creation of false mortgages and the creation of multiple first liens and the marketing and the selling of completely illegal and unrecorded land developments. Some of these developments only existed on paper. Sort of like the Lincoln Savings and Loan of Charlie Keating. When Lincoln Savings and Loan went down, it had dozens of paper land developments on its books. In other words, the projects really didn't exist. They just drew them up some blue line drawings, some plat maps. And they'd market these subdivision properties from blue line drawings, even when the subdivisions hadn't even been built or recorded. You see, ladies and gentlemen, when you're developing and marketing subdivision properties, there's quite a few things you have to do in order to engage in that kind of commerce lawfully. One of the primary things that you have to do when you market a subdivision development is you have to have it properly surveyed by meets and bounds and have the corners properly staked. Iron pin survey, as they're known. A couple other things you have to do when you develop these subdivision developments, sort of like what the Clintons were doing there in Arkansas during their land swindling and land flipping Ponzi days there with the Casa Grande, the Whitewater, Maplewood Farms, and their little fiasco up there off of the New Brunswick coast at Campobello Island, when the Clintons were dirt dealing. You see, ladies and gentlemen, the financial system in the United States has been robbed like never before in all of human history. Trillions upon trillions of dollars have literally gone up in smoke. And real estate swindling, pyramid, and Ponzi scheming. The operative word there is real estate wheeling and dealing. The Clintons were notorious for dirt dealing in the old dirt road subdivisions. Take some time and do some searching around on the internet about dirt road, unrecorded, illegal subdivision developments. The Housing and Urban Development Department of the United States government and Texas Governor Greg Abbott and U.S. Senator from Texas, John Cornyn, and Kevin Brady, Congressman Kevin Brady from the Woodlands, and Congressman Tom Barton from the Conroe, and a whole bunch of them. Former Attorney General Ed Meese, former Attorney General Janet Reno, former Attorney General from Humble, Texas, Alberto Gonzales, and I can go on and on and on with everyone from the U.S. Postal Inspection Service to the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the United States Secret Service. They know damn well what paper Phantom, Ghost, Red Flag, Wildcat, unrecorded illegal land developments, or what are known as colonious subdivisions. They know all about that real estate swindling. Ponzi con. It's a Ponzi con, is all it is. In Arkansas, they call it dirt dealing. Ain't that right, Bill Clinton? Let's talk about dirt dealing, Hillary, and how you steal money from savings and loans and consumers. I can kind of, understand, I guess, the bank robbing that they did, but when you're swindling families and swindling working class people, that's as despicable gets. You see, ladies and gentlemen, this old guy right here, my father was in the land development business in New York, up in the Adirondacks, actually. He wasn't like a great big developer or anything, but I did. I grew up on 600 acres at Harris Bay. Today you can look it up on the internet. It's called the Harris Bay Yacht Club. That's kind of where I got the bug to understand how land swindling works, how you get cheated in a foreclosure, an illegal foreclosure using fake papers. My mother and father got suckered pretty good by a New York lawyer with fake papers. Counterfeit, forged, and faked papers. When I was just a kid, this is kind of what drew me into this real estate fraud mess that the United States has got going on. And it's huge. As everybody knows, this real estate swindling con in the United States has caused huge banking fiascos going back well over a century, 2 centuries. Real estate speculating and dirt dealing has been at the epicenter, the very heart of the banking collapses throughout U.S. history, and it's been going on across the world literally for centuries. Ask the people of Iceland. Ask the people of Ireland. Ask the people of Spain and England and Scotland and France and Australia. This real estate speculating and these unrecorded subdivision swindles, you can bet your bippy that you hadn't heard that one in a while. You can bet your bippy old Hillary Clinton and the Rose Law Firm and the Federal Depositors Insurance Corporation and HUD and FBI Director James Comey, the Director of the U.S. Secret Service, the Director of, the Treasury, and State Attorney Generals all over the United States know damn well old Judson Witham is the expert on the land swindling cons at the very heart, at the very epicenter of the largest financial swindling in all of human history. You think I'm fooling around? Get a hold of U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren and get a hold of Robert Kennedy Jr. And let's get a hold of, let's get a hold of W. George W. Bush, the former governor of the state of Texas. Let's get a hold of George W., the president of the United States. Barack Obama knows what I'm talking about. That's for darn sure. And Joe Biden darn sure knows what I'm talking about. And I can go on and on and on from Mother Jones News to the Rolling Stone, every major newspaper in the country. including most of your major media companies and television news services, including PBS, ABC, NBC, Fox, and all the rest of them. Land swindling, dirt dealing, right, Hillary Clinton? Bill Clinton, let's talk about dirt dealing and real estate swindling and robbing savings and loans. You see, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of people that can testify under oath, you know, tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. Can tell you that Judson Witham has been exposing these real estate swindling games over 30 years. That's more than 3 decades for you neophytes out there. And at the very heart of all this illegal foreclosure and this robo-signing and these pretender lenders and all this other mortgage fraud, the very heart of it's all intricacies and variations of the real estate swindle. Charlie Ponzi from Florida, he knew damn well how to do it. Here's a homework assignment for y'all. Do some research on the Arizona project and the bombing, when they put the bomb under Don Bolles' car back in the 1970s. When they blew up Don Bolles. He was an investigative reporter, worked for a newspaper in Phoenix. He was investigating the old real estate swindle Ponzi con and these speculative dirt road substandard Wildcat Phantom Ghost unrecorded red flag colonius. This is precisely what Don Bolles was investigating. A lot of organized criminals involved in it. New Jersey Mafia, Las Vegas Mafia. I could go on all day long with organized crime organizations all over the world that are involved in these real estate swindling Ponzi cons. But back to the point of this here video. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I've taken my my lumps, believe me. I've taken quite a beating by people who would tell you that old Judd Witham's just as crazy gets. You see, they started making me out to be a nut when I started connecting top-level politicians and Bush pioneers and Clinton donors and all these other politicians to the financial actuaries, the financial swindlers behind and associated with all these less than legal real estate development swindles. It's no coincidence that the Clintons were involved with the MacDougalls and Quah Paw Title. Who the hell's ever heard of Quah Paw Title? That was the title insurance company writing the bogus real estate title insurance and doing the title abstracting on those dirt road, unrecorded, illegal Arkansas land developments. Why do I keep making these videos? Well, it's quite apparent to people like U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren that the FBI ain't doing their job. And it's quite apparent to people like Bernie Sanders that the Justice Department, they ain't doing their job. And it's real apparent to people like Matt Taibbi, and it's real apparent to people like William K. Black. Old Bill Black knows about these dirt road, unrecorded, red flag, Wildcat, Phantom Ghost, illegal, dirt road, substandard subdivision developments that I'm referring to. There's tens of thousands of them all over the United States. It's not just in Florida. It's not just in Maine. It's not just in Pennsylvania or New York or Arizona or New Mexico or Texas or California. It's not just in Utah, up there in old Shirtlift and Swallow country, up there around Salt Lake City. Them Mormons got more of these dirt road land developments than you can possibly imagine. They're all over Idaho. They're all over the Dakotas. They're all over Oregon, California, Nevada. And there's a lot of them out in Hawaii and up in Alaska, too, where they do these less than recorded. They don't properly record their subdivisions. They don't properly record the surveys, and they don't properly install things like public utilities and drainage. And, you know, they don't put in the proper drainage structures, the culverts, and they don't put in the proper engineering, and they don't put in the proper surveying and recording and all the other little nuances of engaging in the real estate development business. And just by the way, the reason a lot of those regulations exist, the legislative history, the history of the legislative action behind the laws, is because associated with a lot of this real estate dirt dealing been huge amounts of fraud. Said that absolutely correctly. Directly associated with these real estate swindling Ponzi cons have been a huge amount of bank robbery and savings and loan looting and interstate land sales registration violations, racketeering, common law fraud, and, well, just a whole bunch of swindling going on in this dirt dealing. Ask Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton knows darn well what I'm talking about here. She's a lawyer. She gets it. And Bill Clinton, he's a lawyer. He understands too. He understands very well. Now, how many trillions are missing now? You see, all those years when I was telling people how they were robbing the country, how they were robbing the system with these real estate schemes, a lot of people tried to make me out to be just as crazy can be. They kept telling themselves, no, I can't be that big. Hell no, there can never be a conspiracy that big. Well, take a look at it, folks. If they weren't printing up 85,000 million every month of reserve notes, those quantitative easing bucks, if they weren't printing 85,000 million a month, in other words, $1 trillion, $1 trillion a year are being printed up right out of the thin air to bail everything out. You see, even President Barack Hussein Obama, there, old Barry Dunham, Mr. So-and-Toro there, he said that he had to snatch the country from the jaws of the worst economic depression and economic collapse and economic fiasco in its history. This is what President Barack Obama's been saying here lately. But Barack Obama and Joe Biden, FBI Director Comey, U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder, I think if you got a hold of Congressman Kevin Brady, and I think if you got a hold of like Nelda Luce Radabow Blair, she's the grand poobah up there at the Woodlands, Texas. And if you got a hold of a few people in the Houston Chronicle and kind of asked around a little bit, you'll discover that there's been this one kind of common sort of guy who needs a shave here. Boy, that old hair is getting gray, isn't it? He's been raising ever-loving hell. I've been raising the alarm about these real estate swindle Ponzi cons. I've been blowing the whistle on all this dirt dealing and bank robbing and savings and loan swindling and the rape and the robbery of consuming hardworking American families. I've been raising ever-loving bloody hell about it for over 3 decades. Hell, I'm the original whistleblower. It was not that gang of folks in Zuccotti Park that started this most recent occupation of Wall Street. That would be me. I got proof. There's this very nice woman. She's a judge, a state district court judge, actually, up at Conroe, Texas. She's the judge of the, I think it's the 284th. I might have that wrong. It might be the 384th. I know it's old Judge Olin Underwood's old court up at Montgomery County, Texas. Her name is Kathleen Hamilton. And you can get a hold of all the former county attorneys up there. You can go back and talk to Jimmy Dozier, and you can talk to, David Walker, and you can get a hold of the district attorneys, old Pete Spears, and you get a hold of them all. Get a hold of that Conroe City attorney, old Marcus Winberry, and ask him about Judson Witham blowing the whistle on unrecorded, illegal, red flag, wildcat, ghost, phantom paper, Colonius. Don't you love that word, old Colonius? The land swindle cons that are notorious deep in the heart of Texas. You see, folks, I've done a little reading on some of this stuff, and believe me, these law volumes that are behind me here, I got thousands and thousands more of them. And one thing I've done in life is that's understand how they pulling off all this real estate swindling and all this mortgage swindling and all these nefarious, less than legal real estate swindling practices. Everything from violations of the deceptive trade practice laws, the fraud laws, the interstate racketeering laws, that'd be organized crime, interstate, violations of mail fraud statutes to, oh golly whiz, the Interstate Land Sales Registration Act. I've been kind of digging into this real estate speculating, bank robbing stuff before 1980s. You see, my dad, I think I already told you my dad was in real estate at Lake George, New York. You can look up Mom and Dad's old marina. Today's called the Harris Bay Yacht Club. That's where I grew up, on 600 acres between Cleverdale and Assembly Point. Interesting part of the world. And yes, I did. I actually worked with Peanut Harris. He was a miserable old dairyman from Harrisina down on the Ridge Road. Hell of a stonemason, though. That man was one of the best stonemasons ever. I mean, he was an artist. There's no question of that. But boy, them old cows. He had to get up at like 3 o'clock in the morning to start milking the cows by 5 or so. And then after we got the cows all put back out in the pasture and hayed and everything, we'd go off and work all day, and then we'd come back. By golly, he'd have to milk them cows again. He did that every day of his life. And wow, man, old man Harris could get pretty damn grumpy. People think I get grumpy, but nothing like Peanut Harris. I even knew old Howard Mason. That's from my old friends up there in the North Country. Howard wrote a series of books called Backward Glances. When I first met Howard Mason, he was living in his little cabin, his cottage. He had a cottage up on Cleverdale. I think it was actually called Mason Road, if I remember right. And he laid in a bed. Hell, he was in his 90s. Had long white hair and a big old long white yellowish beard. Reba tried to keep his fingernails clipped, but his fingernails get pretty long. And he wrote a series of books about the old ways of doing things on the east side of Lake George. His books, pardon me, Backward Glances. Everybody ought to read that. And then, of course, there's Barnes, Buggies, and BB Guns by old Scott McLaughlin. Scotty McLaughlin had a pretty good sense of humor. Interesting man, Scott McLaughlin. But let's get away from my personal history and let's start asking the hard questions to people like Hillary Clinton and all this can of worms with her campaign. Did I say campaign donations? Oh, gee, golly whiz, I'm sorry. My device. I've only got one device, and I get a little confused with my one device. Right, Hillary? Can you imagine? Let me just run this past you now. These things are kind of like, let me see if I can get that in there. These things are like little mini computers, got the keyboard and everything. Can you imagine drafting and typing and reading all your email on a cell phone? Everything. Thousands of emails and reading them all and, doing all your communicating with just one device. Hillary, there's an awful lot of people in this world that were not born yesterday. I don't know who drafted that line of malarkey for you, but boy, I'd fire them. Because that's not even remotely, it's not even close to believable, Hillary. But, wow, you got real estate blatant. That's what Elizabeth Warren called it. Blatantly fraudulent criminality going on everywhere. And according to U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren, the FBI and the regulators and the Justice Department, hell, they ain't doing their job. They're not even, tell me the banksters that have gone to jail. There's an old saying, the proof's in the pudding. And there's that one about the dog that can actually hunt. And then, there's the other one about barking up the wrong tree. And one of my favorites, don't eat yellow snow. Wow. How many trillions are gone? Just right up in smoke in real estate scheming. To friends and family. To all those relatives and stuff that try to make me out to be crazier than a loon. How many real estate swindling Ponzi cons did it take to rob trillions of dollars out of the national system? I don't think old Judd was off the mark. In fact, I'm pretty sure old Judson's been right on the money all along. Folks, I'll tell you what, I'm going to wrap this one up and I'm going to go out of this one with telling you this. I've been around real estate development and large construction projects all my life. Skyscrapers, airports, colleges, malls, entire land developments, such as the Woodlands, just for one. Spent quite a bit of time down around Johnson Space Center, all around Clear Lake and NASA Road 1, Friendswood, all there around the area of the Ellington Air Force Base, Kingwood, Woodlands, Conroe, Lake Conroe, and Salt Lake City and Seattle, Washington, New York City, Albany, Springfield, Missouri. I can name cities all day long. I've been around real estate development and the largest construction interests and development companies in the country. And I can tell you for certain, positive, one thing. The massive financial fiasco in the banks, the savings and loans, the mortgage companies, the federally insured mortgage programs and lending programs that loan huge amounts of money into the real estate markets, like the Federal Home Loan Bank Board, and like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and the Veterans Administration, and the Farmers Home Administration, and the Federal Housing Administration, just to name a few. Dirt dealing and illegal unrecorded land developments, and the tangled web, the can of worms associated with people like O. Dean Couch, Mel and Steve Powers, and I can name names all day long associated directly with these real estate swindling, pyramid, Ponzi schemes, mail fraud, racketeering. It just violates all the law. Literally all the laws. We'll take a little bit of a break. Few weeks anyways. I'm going to take a little bit of a break from video making. I've got some things that I need to take care of, and I just want to let people out there in the world know something about old Judd Witham. I got swindled in a land deal up Conroe, Texas way, and wanted my money back from that crooked slimebag bank, Western National Bank. They're next door to the Galleria in Houston, right next to the Galleria Mall. Western National Bank, or what was known as Western Bank Westheimer. And that little gang at that Western Bank were directly involved with the Iran-Contra and George H. Bush and his little gang and friends from RLG Holdings in Zurich, Switzerland, Westgate Investments and Carlyle Group and Bearing Point. I go all day long about Joanna Herring King and Congressman Charlie Wilson and Baker and Botts and Jimmy Baker, the Secretary of State, and the Clintons. They're all just tied all up in a great big old web of fraud. Sort of like Webster Hubbell and Gary Morrow. Hell, I was doing banking with the Texas Land Commissioner, Gary Morrow, at Western Bank. The Intertech boys. Look up the Intertech land swindles. I don't know. Trillions of dollars have been swindled and stolen. And how many American families have gotten the bill? And how many American families have been the target of all these frauds? Millions. So the next time anybody says old Judd Witham's off the mark, would you give them a message for me and tell them they're about a truckload of bricks short of a full load? You see, folks, the first thing they try to do is kill the messenger. When you can't kill the message, you got to kill the messenger. So we'll leave it right there. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, hasta la vista. We will be back.